All right, so let's do number one and number two. So basically, you use the product rule when you have a product. Here you see some factor times another factor. I'm going to use a different notation so it's easier to see. I'm going to call this y of x. Okay, just for the formula. But basically, this one technically you could multiply it out and then do the power rule term by term. That would like we did last time. But here the idea is don't multiply it out. Do it as is because you could have like a giant power on this, right? Like a cube or a seven. At that point, you're not going to multiply it. You're just going to do the derivative. Okay, so let's write that one down here. Okay, so this is first example, number one from the homework. Use product rule. I'm going to call it y of x equal to, let me make some space. X squared plus 3 times x squared minus 8x. So basically, think of this as your f function times g function. So the formula says that the derivative of y is equal to f prime x times g, so the derivative of the first term times the second term, plus the derivative of the first term times, derivative of the second times the first. All right. Or using the other notation, y prime of x is equal to d dx of f of x times g plus derivative with respect to x times g and then f. So what you can do for this question is write down what f is, just to stay organized. X is this first piece. So what is the derivative of f? Yeah, just 2x. And then do the g. Derivative would be almost the same, right? What is this one? Well, pretty close. It's 2x minus, only the 8 is left over. So now just plug these guys in to your formula and you're good. So the derivative of y is equal to f prime. I'm going to use this notation just because it's easier for this example, which will be 2x times g plus g prime times f. Oops. And that's technically the derivative, but we should multiply it out. This will be 2x cubed minus 16x. Distribute. Plus 2x cubed plus 6x minus 8x squared minus 24. Combine like terms and you're done. And the derivative was finished up here, right? Calculus step was there. The rest is algebra. So 2x plus 2x cubed is going to be -6. Well, let's do the squares first. Only one. X's, -16 plus 6. And then the constant. That's it. So we did this because we had an f and a g being multiplied together, right? So you have something times something, two functions. The derivative will be just this every time. So just plug them in. I recommend you solve it on the side first and then just put them in. You can do it all at once if you want. It's up to you. Any questions on this first example? All right. I'll move on to the next one. You guys cool on this page? So you need to be able to spot when you should do product rule. You see this guy, you have a 4ex function times a cosine function. So that should be the big hint. Oh, I need to do a power rule. I can't just do it straight up. I'm sorry, a product. You can call it y just so I can label stuff the way I want. So this right here is my f of x and g of x. So f is equal to 4ex. What is the derivative? Derivative 4ex is just going to be itself, right? Doesn't change. That 4 doesn't do anything. Derivative cosine is going to be negative sine. This is from the formulas I gave you. So the derivative will be f prime g plus g prime f. So just plug it in. for EX, cosine X plus G prime, which is a negative sign, times F. Any questions about this step? That's the calculus step right here, from there to there. At this point, you can factor this common term, right? That's about all you can do. You mean like as a product rule of its own? You could, but because it's just a constant factor, it's not going to change anything. So we treat it as just a coefficient, but you could do it as a third, right? Just for the heck of it, you could. And when you're doing this piece right here, the F prime G or G prime F, the constant is going to be zero. So one of them will just disappear, leaving you with just this part. So it wouldn't matter anyway. That's a good question, though. Yeah, it is pointless, but technically you could. So I just, whenever I see a number, since you can factor them out, you can always ignore them and work around them. That's how I like to think about it. If y of x is equal to f of x over g of x, and g of x is not 0, then the derivative would be the quotient rule formula. Let's be a little more formal this time. It's going to be f prime g minus g prime f over g squared. Anyway, any questions on 2 before we start the next example? Okay. I'm going to turn the page and do the example on the next page. This is number 3. You use the quotient rule on this guy. I'm going to rename it y just because I want to, so I can better fit the formula. Doesn't matter though. So the derivative is going to be, oh, I already forgot what it was. F prime G minus G prime F. Okay. F prime G minus G prime F. So let's do the same thing. Let's set it up on the side. Find F and G prime. All right, let's try to kill a mosquito. It's gonna get me. All right, F is the top derivative of F. G is x to the fourth plus 1. G prime of x is equal to the derivative. So what is the derivative of x? If it's just a variable, the way I think about it, whatever number is in front is what's going to be left over because it becomes a zero power, so it just kind of disappears. There's just going to be a 1. Yeah. So if it was a 2x, this would be 2. And if it was like a 7x, you'd get 7. There we go. Now we got everything. So the derivative is equal to f prime times g. There it is. That's all good. G prime would be right here. Times x. Oh, yeah, forget it. Divided by g squared. That's the calculus step. So at this point, we just have some algebra. 1 times that is just itself, so who cares? Negative that times that is going to be negative 4x to the fourth over that guy, which will be negative 3x to the fourth plus 1 over x to the fourth plus 1 squared. Any questions on this one?
Hey, Professor, can you move your notepad up just a
Oops.
little?
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay. Thanks.
Trying to kill this mosquito and it's driving me crazy. Yeah. All right. So there's the quotient rule. Let's do it. Let's do another one. Any questions on three though before we move on? I feel like the hardest part would be the algebra step, just trying to simplify. Because the calculus wasn't too bad, right? All right. Let's do this guy. Number four, another quotient rule. Then after that, I think it's the same thing over and over again. Yeah. Using quotient rule. Again, I'm going to rename it. So F is 8 sine X derivative G is always the bottom and its derivative. Formula will be F prime G minus G prime F over G squared. So what is F prime? Yeah, it just stays the same, right? For G prime and F prime. You can just ignore the 8. What is the derivative of sine? Yeah, so this would become would be positive. So it'd be just 8 cosine to whatever result times 8. So if it was negative, it would be negative 8. But there we go. Got everything. The y prime will be a cosine times g minus g prime times f. Yeah, negative is only for the derivative of cosine. Derivative of cosine is negative sine. Derivative of sine is positive cosine. All right, so at this point, they both have e to the x. Factor that guy out, I guess. So now we also have 8 in common. 8 and e, 8 and e. So we're left with cosine x minus sine x over ex squared, which will reduce, right? Cancel one of these. And that's it. Any questions on 4? So as long as you have your formulas and you know your derivatives, you'll be good. And the algebra, of course. All right, so the next one, you have to do the same exact thing. Do a product rule on this guy. Plug in the solution here. And then part B, you just plug in the number 0. That's it. And whatever results you get would go here. Same thing here. Do a quotient rule on this guy, and at the very end, plug in this number into the result. So there's nothing new here. To work on these for a bit. Let's see. I think we're doing good on time. So we are a little bit ahead. So let's use the rest of the time just to do homework. So work on 3.3. Or if you're behind these two, I'm going to open them up again if I haven't already. I can't remember. Let me know if you get stuck. We can do some together.